the provider registry. We use a case. We actually look at IRIS as what we want to look at as a case. But again, I know there's been a lot of talk about this. We've taken some courses of action where we've actually not gone exactly for this, but this will actually help us to actually have a tool that is existing. And then we will also get to what discuss the various tools. I think as we mentioned that we could actually use OpenMPI as a tool, but also there's been also some talks, some people who are thinking of probably using the source for provider registry. The definition of what a provider registry, I think Carl's presentation yesterday actually told us more about what's the registry, and so I will not go into defining what is what. So IRIS is actually was actually developed by Intel through the protocol capacity class. It has been deployed in a couple of countries, including Rwanda and some other countries. And we are also trying to deploy in South Sudan and other places where we have action started. So if you look at we have what we did, So that's what we say. So that's what they did. They deployed it in some places, so we can actually have a couple of reference sites. I know there have been talks with guys of Israel, especially Duncan? Luke Duncan. Yes. And other people have actually been involved in the discussions. Why we looked at IRIS as one of the options because it is already deployed, so it is active in Rwanda, so they actually have data on this in Rwanda, so we have most of the providers, most of the healthcare professionals are already there. I think there are also this, I think what has been told, like we want to add the community the community workers on
that's not yet decided.
Yeah.
What you said is right. We have, we believe pretty much everyone in the health sector, drivers, doctors, specialists, everyone is registered. But we're still dealing with data. We had a cohort of data collection, and then afterwards there's another constructive data collection that was done. So we are trying to update the funds with the estimate.
This is up and running. We just need to make sure that all the attributes are well filled. Because otherwise, if on some of the attributes, like for example, age, potential factor is not good. So if you want to run a report, let's say on age distribution, or let's say people are going to retire in the next 1 to 3 years, you don't kind of get so the update is the fields and so on and so forth. But I would say largely most of the things that we done. Like you said, Luke Duncan is the lead developer who's giving us support. We haven't yet, we haven't talked so much about quite some time about the community of worker registry. We did a couple of weeks ago start that discussion because there are 3 systems already that hold community of work as individual information. One of them being RPSMS, the other one being the M0, which is the one that collects MDG indicators locally at the community level. And another one is one that's hoping for managing financial management of cooperatives. So we realized that these main systems are all holding individual records of community workers, right? So we decided to have a meeting and chat about how do we get one single source of truth of registry for all community workers. There are quite many. They change time to time. So we need really to be consistent across all systems. What we narrowed down to, because we didn't consider HRIs actually at the moment, given it wasn't holding any community market data at all, and to target the purpose at the beginning. We are looking mainly at the three systems that I just mentioned, and in that meeting we agreed we are going to keep temporarily, though we didn't think this is going to be the permanent registry for community workers, but we thought rapid SMS could hold would be the, I mean, because of our support here now, we have, easily customizable, we thought we could hold to be the kind of hold the registry for community workers. But eventually, there is a potential for migration to HRIs if you find it necessary.
Thanks, Richard. I think this actually brings us to some of the fundamental questions. We say, who's professional, healthcare professional? We can actually, not only talk about the doctors and the nurses, we will look at maybe the drivers, maybe some of the admin people. So because they're all parts and parcels of it. So,
but for them, they do contribute to the shared directly because they enter clinical data, they give the clinical data, they prescribe antibiotics and organization drugs, and even so there's a list of medication that and they actually prescribe and dispense. So they directly impact the individual health record. So they should definitely be considered as part of what they health.
Thanks a lot. So thank you very much for the clarification. I think that helps us into maybe in guiding us exactly how we should go about it. So we actually look at it as a case, but again, we can actually, the same thing can actually apply to anybody else. Any other candidate application can be a candidate for provider registry. It's mainly written in PHP MySQL. We have a demo which is actually available online. Anyone can actually go on the website and be able to look at what it is. We can easily configure it in the sense that we can it gives you a bit of flexibility, but again, in the flexibility we talk about some of the identifiers of some of these professionals. We can actually have many identifiers we can actually configure ourselves. So this includes, like, for example, for our use case, for the people in Rwanda, we use insurance like Rama or Michel Sunday or so we actually find some. We can actually try and find some of these professionals using some of these unique identifiers that we have in Rwanda, which are other than just the national ID. So we can actually use those. Most of the people actually have either insurance, which is some type of insurance, or the Ministry of Health ID number. So like we actually give you a kind of a number, so like you get the Ministry of Health gives you a certain number that you can actually use.
One of the things that I think we decided to use the CSR social security number. The main issue is not that some people don't have them, but the main issue is that people don't, when they are entering data, they don't put it there. I would really argue that pretty much everybody who is employed obviously has the CSR number. So either it's not known by the person who is entering the data, and then you have a problem identifying this person. Every employee obviously is above 16, so they have IDs apart from foreigners, and even then foreigners also have their passports or other IDs. So the biggest challenge is not even identifying that having it identified, because we have the IDs one, the CSR the other. Insurance, maybe not, because it changes time to time. Today it could be a Rama insurance holder, and tomorrow it would be mutual insurance holder. So maybe it's not a good proxy to use for the identifier, because it changes. But the other static identifiers don't change. So I'm just sharing practice here, which is the fact that we have a problem not putting those numbers there. But once numbers are put, it makes life easy.
Thank you. So when we're looking at it, we're actually, because again, at that time when we're looking at evaluating the system, we had in mind a system mind to somehow unified or influence in this way right from the requirements by having a facility registry and a provider registry, somehow being unified. So having actually a lot of things in common. So we actually looked at some of the non-functional requirements, these are general non-functional requirements. We talked about the unique identifiers. So as we heard from Richard, we either use national ID or we will call it the national social security number, or the passport, or any other identification for maybe say we're actually talking about having it to be able to support some role-based access. So we can actually have having a system where different people can actually have, depending on what they do, we can actually have access to different parts of that. Well, we also looked at to support the health workers. So currently, the health workers that we have, so the provider registry should be able to all health workers. I think this goes in line with what Richard said. Not only those directly providing healthcare, but all the other ones who are actually within the health system. We actually looked at some of the kind of use cases, because I say, how would you use the system? How should the system behave when we do some of the things, especially when we're using the system. So the different people actually are using the system. So we have the system will actually be mainly maintained by we call them a kind of a super users or administrators, because not anyone else will be able to make changes to the system. So I don't really have to go to this level of detail, so you can get me feedback on this so that we can maybe move forward.
Maybe just the ones that aren't fulfilled. Maybe because the ones that are fulfilled are okay. Maybe just talk about problem areas within this, and just maybe your feeling about how Iris would suit the needs of a provider registry. I think so. Maybe that's really good.
That's a question. The information here on this requirements is going from the original provider registry document alone, or that you have information also from the requirements of the information system that I mentioned.
Well, that's a very good question. I think we didn't want to change the course of action, because most of these requirements were actually approved.
Okay.
So we didn't want to bring it, make a new one, especially on the functional requirements. But the non-functional, it's just we actually for a system where we can actually be robust enough for that. So these are general functional requirements actually.
Ones that are approved together with the rest of the
yes.
The ones that mentioned okay.
Yes. And but also included some of the requirements from the interoperability. So maybe at the lower level we actually say the requirements coming from the RHEA.
I think just talking to Ryan's point is I think a lot of us have seen the requirements coming up. We need to just highlight the areas where there's concern, and to just talk steal Sean's words and Derek's words. Where does your gut feel? It's between the team. Does Iris feel like a good fit? Why? And where does it fall short? And do we have alternatives?
From the onset, I think that's the system we have currently, where we have the data, and including most of the data from Rwanda. It does not, from my view, does not seem to be very robust, and maybe doesn't fit in the whole architectural framework that we have for all these systems. So we need to definitely either get some of the modules or find ways of actually getting the data from it. We can either make it the way we are using OpenMRS as maybe a system that feeds into shared health records. So we can also find a way of actually either being a client or being a consumer of some of the data that we are actually going to do, because we need some kind of interactivity, interaction between IRIS and our provider registry. So if one should be able to feed the other. So most likely we should be able to maybe have a system which is a bit more robust. Alternatives, I've not seen that many alternatives, so I don't know some other people can actually come up with it.
So by your iteration, the evaluation has shown that IRIS as it stands at the moment does not meet the needs of the provider registry.
Yeah, it's not robust enough. How can you be more particular? What specifically does it not do or do that we don't like?
I was actually trying to, from the point of view where we can actually have different, because we remember we're actually having building blocks. So we're actually talking about different blocks. We are talking about we already have a facility register to actually developed in conjunction with instead. So we are actually having the other one. So if you look at, well, at least that's my, as you say, as Carl said, the gut feeling. Because like, the way it looks, it seems to be able to hold the data, but probably we need a lot of development for it to somehow fit in with the level to fit in at the level of the other applications we've developed, like the RHEA and the other registries.
I think what Michel's trying to get across is that I think it seems like the system's not what the system was designed to do. It's got an inherently different use case, and that's maybe that's something. While it's possible to act as a provider registry, you could make it work. Maybe it's not the best. Maybe it's not really something that's designed to have that sort of functionality.
Yeah. And I can tell you that I've spoken with the leadership at IntraHealth, multiple occasions, and I think they see it similar to how you just described it. I mean, they understand that they have a lot of domain expertise, but they think that making the IRIS the provider registry is overloading something that shouldn't be, and they actually imagine that being componentized and highly tightly integrated with IRIS. And that's all the way from the CEO of IntraHealth down to, Diggy Settle, the person who leads the project. And they've been in a lot of email conversations with them, and they're deeply committed to that. So I think they understand that they're complementary and have a very important role in that process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to say that too. And I don't know that we ever envisioned just using IRIS the way that it was and then not having a provider registry. That even if we used IRIS software, it would be some skinny down version that was just going to serve the purpose of the provider registry. So we could be running 2 instances in Rwanda, not just we use what we're doing now.
I thought that's what we were talking. I mean, what?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that?
Let me go a little bit forward then. So what IntraHealth said is that we want to participate in a process where, we could certainly start with IRIS if that's what the group decides, but I think there's an openness, and they've gone out and tried to find funding, and I think have successfully found funding to do the more realized version of the provider registry. And if there's a way that, from a technology perspective, we can use one of these undifferentiated software stacks to present the basis of a provider registry that would integrate with IRIS, that would be their happiest circumstance. They haven't written the code in such a way that is inherently a registry, right? It's not written that way. And so we could certainly, as a stopgap, use it as that, but that would be bastardizing something that wasn't intended to be in the first place. that make sense? So they understand what it means to be a provider, but they haven't written code around being a registry. It just happens to have that information in it. Does that make sense?
They do have the ability to add records, to recall records,
Right.
and to recall records.
But that's a user interface. That's not a service that would allow you to query for providers, get back providers, do capacity, high capacity queries and responses, and it's not a service.
The people lookup job,
I mean,
the person lookup job that we're expecting opening in the identity relies on the same kinds of things that you would need as a person lookup job in getting providers. And it sounds like if there's an appetite on the part of those folks to say, how could I well be integrated with something that can do that thing well, that seems to me to be a ready mechanism to get to the goal line.
Yeah, and they bring them to do it. Even better.
Just a question. Haven't anyone looked at any other alternatives, or are we driven by the fact that we know for health and we can't get the money, or did someone look at any alternatives? Is there any other open source provider registry that we have used? It looks like we are almost tied to HRIs.
No. So I don't think that the provider registry is either is what we're saying if they want IntraHealth to participate in the process towards building the provider registry, which I think is a different thing, right?
Yeah, so building from scratch, is there anything else? Just like building
Open API is an option, metadata management, a bunch of metadata management tools, even resource mapper could potentially serve in that capacity.
Talking about your applications, and like I guess Iris, it's an application that happens to you like with the Red Cross and volunteer management thing. Sorry, the surveillance system in Cambodia. The first thing that people feel is like, I want the updated phone number, the updated phone number for our bosses, because we kind of escalate when we think there's an outbreak or something. So, but we did that as an application that could have leveraged with the provider registry, but it wasn't a provider registry itself. It was very glorified app.
Right. So, just on Richard, your question is, your question is quite simple. Have you looked at anything else? And I think it's not about what other countries are policy to do, but the question, what does the provider registry do? And one of the things we have done inadvertently working with the client registry is evaluate the use of open API and possibilities of both match. So both settings idea of looking at a person with different characteristics in it. So that we're moving in that direction. These are the other alternatives that we are.
There's a particular client registry that's got 9 of the 10 provinces in Canada. It's providing a client registry in 9 of the 10 and the provider registry in 9 of the 10. It's very, very common that you use the same product for your client registry and your provider registry, and the standard interfaces that you would use to find clients is very similar to the standard interfaces you would use to search out providers. In terms of our sort of risk mitigation strategy to try to integrate standard-based interfaces, it would be helpful for us to do that, so that the same things that it would help us do managing risk on the client registry would be the same thing with the provider registry for us.
I'm just wondering here that visually, and what you seem to be suggesting is that these two could actually be merged. The client registry and the provider registries actually the same thing.
Same technology,
Same technology with different record format.
Yes.
RHEA at one point, and I can go back and see where they're at. We're looking at enterprise person, master person index, where you have different roles, and there's the times they're going to be a patient, the times they're going to be a provider, and so you depending on whether that works faster or whether the response time isn't good, you know, set it together. But you need that as a technical solution and an evolution. Because again, if you go back to what they're talking about, the person index, or the client index, or registry, you want to get something started and recognize that as long as the technology is going to change, so you want to make sure that you're ready as it goes, and it turns out that it can be done fine.
I think the other thing that comes into the picture is we recently made a provisional decision to use rapid SMS to collect all of the community health worker registrations. So we got 45,000 names in that, and this is really only about 16,000 right now. Of course, the community health worker record is a very short record with very few attributes. And the problem with it, and the raison d'etre for HRIS is that it's a very rich sort of history of the employment history. It has everything about the supervisory relationships of people. That's the kind of stuff that I'm not sure that you would keep in the personal record. It'd be very difficult to maintain, probably. So my feeling, one of the things we might, Richard, we might want to reconsider is, would it be quicker for us to modify HRIS to capture directly the CHW registrations? Because basically, this is not going to be a phone-based registration. It's going to be using the web interface of rapid SMS. It might be just as easy and quick to have IntraHealth help us put together a data entry screen for that particular employee type of CHW, and then have everything here. Simplify our drawing. But I would agree that this really, for me, is more a person index. You might also use it to store sort of rights to certain systems. Like if I'm authorized to create a new concept or something like that, that kind of information might be stored here. Or if I'm authorized to add a new facility to the health facility registry, that kind of information could be stored here because it's so integral to the registries. But the basic operational data, your timesheets, your pay, salary rates, and things like that, I think those are the strengths of an HR, a dedicated HR tool that we wouldn't want to reproduce, certainly here.
If I could just add a point, I think there's maybe a little bit of confusion as to why we looked at IRIS first. And the reason we looked at IRIS is because it's running the country and we wanted to have a good reason why we weren't getting off of it. And we've discovered that. If anybody asks us why we aren't using IRIS to meet the provider registry, we know exactly why. The vision was always to continue the evaluation using the alternatives for the personal index that we have, and we can move those forward. But if we find a solution where IRIS is able to provide that functionality of being a provider registry, well, then we need to provide to the very rapid delivery solution that is supported with capacity in country already and by a team that has all the data. But it was not the intention to assume that we re-implemented that way. And the alternatives are the use of the EMR solutions or the Earth Match. They come down to the same principles of what we're doing with the client registry. Get it up and running, has work those interfaces, and the engine becomes visible on the back end. So we start looking to what are the next steps to move forward. And we know that HRIS is not going to work for us, and we'll take the same approach we do with OpenEMPI, since that makes no sense to build two sets of capacity, two separate tools at this point in time.